Hey fam, I want you to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications. How university students are not happy at all with these white gentrifiers who have been moving into historically black neighborhoods in Washington, D.C. You got white folks walking their dogs on the yard at Howard University, having picnics and just strolling around campus as if it's a damn park. No, it's a college campus. And so we dropped by Howard University to get the thoughts on some students there. And here's what they had to say.
They really don't value the campus and our spaces as much as we do. We hold the yard, like that's a sacred space for us. And for them to bring their dogs and have their dogs using the restroom on the yard, that is seen as disrespectful. That's just disrespectful to us. And I think if we were to go to spaces like Georgetown, and what if we brought our dogs that ran around Georgetown's campus like that? I don't think it would have the same reaction. And I think locals don't value, well, people who have moved in do not value the culture, and they don't participate in maintaining the culture that is DC, that is Howard.
It's like a slap in the face. It's like they come in and we can do what we want, in a sense. As far as the go-go music being played in front of Metro PCS, I love how how our people came in droves and everyone came to support, because that man had been playing his music there for years and no one was saying anything, and it wasn't even past 8 or 9 p.m. I think. It was in the daytime. So it's like they feel threatened or entitled when they moved in, and this is really our community in a sense.
Greg Carr, you teach at Howard University. I am volunteering to walk the yard and to call the cops on white folks having picnics and they dogs pissing all over the yard.
Dear brother, I must say that if you call the police on these white women and their dogs, we may then have to go to war because the police might try to arrest you.
Yeah.
I think what we're facing is, of course, white privilege, but also there are convergence of issues we're facing. And I've seen these white folks on the yard. When I see a white person with their dog on Howard's campus, I walk toward them and I purposely stand right in front of them and their dog, daring them to do anything other than continue on their way. Now, I'm sure that they could call the police on me, but I think we see the convergence of things. We're seeing not only the entitlement of whiteness, because these white people take their dogs anywhere and do anything, but we also see a dog culture. We live in a society where they have gentrified this neighborhood, and you've got what used to be other mixed-use purposes buildings, now high-rent condos, and on the roof you have dog parks. Yes, parks for their dogs when people don't have places to sleep tonight in the city. So you got that convergence. But the only other thing I would say about this issue of dogs walking around on Howard University's campus, and increasingly with gentrification, I would not be surprised to see them walking on the campus of Tennessee State or Texas Southern or Jackson State or other places. We see our response to this must be to make them so uncomfortable in the space that they begin to avoid. And we can do that quite easily. And I, for one, would be glad to walk with you shoulder by shoulder, brother, and we can stand in front of the Alpha Monument and make sure no dogs violate that space, brother.
Even Omegas. Scott Baldwin, your choice, with the Howard Law School there. And this thing really goes beyond Howard University in terms of folks just having picnics and their dogs urinating and pooping on the yard.
Yeah.
What we're seeing all across the country, Scott, we are seeing historically black spaces that have been turned upside down. Luther Campbell talked about in his book on Miami what happened there. We're seeing in Oakland. There was a black church in Oakland that was sued because the white neighbor said, oh, their choir rehearsal was too loud. They were cited many times by the police department saying the choir rehearsal was too loud. The banging of the drums in Harlem, white folks have been complaining, saying, oh, too much noise as well. And we can go down the line, all of these places that have been historical places of black culture is being turned upside down with white folks moving in.
Also burned. Remember, we still have churches burned in Louisiana.
Oh, yeah, certainly. It's interesting that the churches seem to be a magnet point for this. What I mean by that is, you remember 5-10 years ago, Roland, in in Washington, D.C., where I live, that the churches in and around downtown were having challenges with new white residents who were challenging them on Sunday regarding parking, if you will. Now, historically in D.C.
Scott, that's not about 10 years ago. Now, Scott, we had our State of the Union event at Shiloh Baptist Church last year. They told us that they are catching hell because the white neighbors do not like the cars parked there on Bible study as well as on Sunday morning.
It's ongoing then. But when you talk about class of cultures, black churches on Sunday, there's not enough parking on the street by the city in Washington, and so historically, black parishioners will park behind each other. They will block each other in because nobody's leaving the pulpit and nobody's leaving the church until church is over, and that's just something that's been going on in our historical black communities in Washington. And white people moved in, and their cars got blocked. And then they started to complain. They called the police. They started talking to their congressman about changing the parking rules and all these other things, which would be disruptive to historical black culture, whether it's right or wrong. And so instead of white privilege moving in and trying to dictate new norms in our black communities, I don't have a problem with people that don't look like me coming into our neighborhoods, but come into our neighborhoods and try to integrate into these neighborhoods and try to build a positive relationship versus dictating what white privilege is going to do and tell you simply because you're not used to that norm in your community. That's the real problem with gentrification.
But Shireen, the reality is whiteness has always been about telling everybody else
what to do.
Way on the highway.
Right.
Exactly.
I agree. I just said they shouldn't be doing that.
But
that's a real problem.
The key to this is that if you even look at some of the stuff that's happening, what just happened in New York, they changed the school system so that all children are treated equally in the school system, and white people were still upset about that. Why? Because they were instituting like their own segregation in an urban environment. So we're talking about the North versus the South, and the way the white people treat black and brown people in this country, it's been the same. They think they can tell us what to do. We are not to tell them what to do, but they think that they can tell us what to do. So whenever they show up, they're showing up saying, hey, this is the way we operate, so you need to operate like us, and not the other way around. And that is historically not only what's happened in this country overall, but if you think about what's going on with this current president, it's the exact same thing. It's like, we want you out, we want you to either do it our way and integrate our way, or don't come here. If you're not happy, leave. It's like, no, seriously, if you're not happy and you don't like brown people around you, you leave. You go home. Like, the thought that you're telling us that we are supposed to somehow change our own cultural narrative to fit them, that's part of the challenge. And it's always been the case. Most people who go to work every day are told that they have to go to work every day and keep their culture at the door, while everyone else, i.e. white people, get to have their culture run amok, and we're supposed to figure out how to navigate in that space like that instead of us bringing our full selves in, not only in work, but every place we are, including where we live now, including the school systems now. That's the fundamental problem of where we are at this moment. And yes,
last comment. I'm gonna go to Greg Carr. I'm going to Lexi's last comment on this. Greg Carr. We're also seeing this. I was on Twitter where they said Ralph Abernathy Way in Atlanta. The white folks are calling some other names. They don't want to acknowledge that. In my hometown of Houston, 3rd Ward, very well known, home of Jack Yates High School, Texas Southern University. White folks moving in, calling it Midtown. That ain't Midtown.
Yeah.
3rd Ward is right next to downtown. It's called 3rd Ward. But again, though, so what you see is you have this black identity. And so when white gentrifiers start rolling in, all of a sudden it's, no, we're going to rename this. And in fact,
DC has it too.
What are they trying to rename something in Harlem as well? They didn't want to call it Harlem, trying to call it something else.
They changed New Rock City, New Rochelle, right? All the examples, even here, Noma. Right, we have all these different names instead of what the existing names are. But yes, absolutely, they come in and they're like, we're going to change this to be different so that other people want to show up. But yes, it's like, and also the way they've taken over Harlem. I was born and raised in Harlem. The stuff that I see that's going on in Harlem is nothing that I have ever grown up with. So it is clear they come in, and even people who have lived there for years, for 30, 40 years, are being told that they don't belong there, while people are moving into their buildings and quote unquote fixing everything up. But somehow all of a sudden sudden they don't have permission to be there.
But
Greg
Roland, is it a real
Carson.
issue
Greg
what
Carson.
black people are going to do about this?
Hold on,
Because
Scott.
I
Hold on,
don't know
Scott.
whether
Hold
black
on, Greg
people are
Carson.
doing anything about this.
No,
Greg?
I agree with what Scott just said, what you just said, brother. What are we going to do about it? I mean, in a stone's throw from Howard is Lincoln Temple United Church of Christ. That's where they started the American Negro Academy. Paul Robeson, Martin Luther King, Marion Anderson, all saying that the congregation dwindled to the point, black congregation, where now the building is for sale. It'll be condos soon. And so, you know, I don't have any problem with white people renaming everything. I really don't. You know why? Because when we see that, the question we have to ask ourselves is the question Scott just raised. What are we going to do? What we see is black political power in these cities was the keys were handed over to black people when white people didn't want to live here. And then they took the tax base and the revenue generation out of the cities. We put these cities in play, and then now they're coming back because they want to be back in these cities. Well, as they come back, you don't welcome them with open arms. At this point, it's a declaration of war. And when you're at war, you got to act like you're at war. I'm not talking about killing people. I'm not talking about harming people. But I'm talking about being a whole lot less cooperative and a whole lot less welcoming. And that means city council people, that means ward people and alder people need to now take an adversarial attitude toward these people who are trying to stop black worshipers from parking in front of their churches and are trying to now push us out of these neighborhoods. If you want this space, you get it 1 inch at a time, and we're going to fight you every inch of the way.
Yeah.
Alexis,
well, that
final
mentality
comment.
isn't always present
Alexis?
in our black community.
Hold on, Scott.
Greg.
Hold on, Scott. Alexis.
The
You're right.
reason why this is even able to happen, it comes down to the idea that black people aren't supposed to have anything. So anything that black people have, whether it's a neighborhood, whether it's a school, it's up for grabs in a lot of eyes of white people because, again, it's the idea that blacks aren't supposed to have anything. And, of course, some people are going to downplay and say, well, it's just dogs on a college campus, or we just didn't want the choir playing music too loud. But no, the concept really comes down to don't come in my house telling me how to run it. And so when it comes to gentrification or white people moving in and slowly but surely pushing black people out, that's a problem. And when, like someone said earlier today, don't come on like for Howard's campus, you know, don't know the culture there, thinking that you can just do whatever you want because you feel entitled. You feel you have the right to do so. That's an expression of white supremacy. You come onto that yard, you don't know the culture there, the students there, anything. Howard has a lot of history. As a proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, where my organization was founded, it was Howard University. It has a lot of history there. So I know for me, I don't even go to Howard, but if I go on there on that campus and I observe the culture there, I see a dog pissing on the Alpha Kappa Alpha tree, that's a problem. And so for me, it speaks to the fact that we're not supposed to have anything. We're not supposed to be able to value anything. And when the things we value are disrespected, we're supposed to not sit around and not say anything. And I think that the solution is we cannot take this sitting down. If we continue to not speak out and not say anything, it will continue to happen.
Yeah, but Roland,
All right,
why
Scott.
aren't-
Okay,
why-
Scott. Now you can talk.
Okay, why aren't you talking about what black people, elected officials, business leaders, and community folks and church leaders aren't doing about this? Because it's not like
That's
we're
right.
being just walked over and run over. Our mentality simply isn't to fight this, at least in any type of organized way. And so if our elected officials are giving our communities and our cultures away, if our churches and our community people can talk about the problem but aren't doing anything about economic empowerment, political justice, social justice, and taking a stand against these infringements in our communities, we are as much to blame as white supremacy is, or as white privilege is that comes in, and we allow them to do that. That's a broader
That's
issue in regard to Black America and what we're willing to fight for, and whether we've gotten too comfortable with where we are and not willing to fight.
Well, that's also why I've also
agree
said
with that.
that if the land is for sale, we should be buying it. So that's
Exactly.
The point.
Roland Martin Unfiltered, be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.